When your care needs are complex or you need 24-hour care, you'll need to employ more than one PA. In this module, we'll look at setting out what your different needs are and deciding how to make sure that all those needs are met in a way that suits you. To do that, you'll make decisions about structuring your team and your schedule, and you'll also need to understand how to manage your team and rota.
In general, all my PAs can do all the basics, the everyday things. That's essential for me because sometimes I need to cover absences, illness, or annual leave. And so that means I can do everything I need to do on a daily basis. And also in terms of safety, they all need to know what to do in an emergency.
Split the tasks and responsibilities that you listed as part of advertising for PAs into the essential ones that every PA must be able to do, ones which need to be covered by at least one member of the team, and lastly, the ones which are desirable but not essential.
I think everybody's got different qualities. You know, some are good cooks, some are good at, gardening, some are, I don't know, everybody's got a kind of different skill. So I tend to sort of tap in to their skills. Like for saying sake, one of my carers loves gardening, and I've got a little bit of a deck with some plants in it and plants inside, and she likes to look after them. I think it's like her second garden.
Remember, there'll be core tasks that you need regularly and some which keep you safe, and it's important that you don't compromise on any of those. If you need consistent care support at all times of the day and night, there might be fewer tasks in your schedule that you leave only some people to do.
I look for the same skills for everybody because I need everybody to be able to do all parts of the job, because the whole point of it is enabling me. So there's no point in saying to somebody, oh, well, I've got 3 good cooks, and this person doesn't matter if they can't cook, because what if all 3 people are on holiday? I can't starve for a week. So I make sure that the skills I look for are the same for everybody.
If you have particular parts of your routine that need special skills, or 2 people working together, you may structure shifts to have those PAs at those times.
I have specific jobs allocated to specific people. So one person does the putting me to bed, staying overnight, and getting me up the following morning. But then I need an extra person to put me to bed because I need 2 people for the bed bit. And so somebody else joins them at night for an hour. And then somebody else joins them in the morning and then takes over at breakfast time and gives me breakfast and gets me to the point where I can work.
Because you're in control of how your care is structured, you can try things out and make changes as you go. You can also adjust how you're cared for as your condition progresses or changes. You'll need to agree any changes with your existing team if it's outside what's foreseen in the terms and arrangements for their employment. Alternatively, when PAs want to change their work patterns or they decide to leave, it can be a great opportunity to think about whether your structure can be tweaked with new PAs in a way that will benefit you.
My care rota is fairly complex. It's evolved over time as people's circumstances have changed and my circumstances have changed. I started off with just 2 PAs, but then when I moved to 24-hour care, I realised that I needed a lot more support. So now I have a team of 8, 6, 5 do regular shifts and the others are cover staff.
Depending on your budget, you may need to make the best possible use of the number of hours you can afford without having 24-hour cover. If you're in this position, think about which tasks you need at particular times and which elements of your team's job can be fitted in when it's convenient.
So, if I need my washing done, then I need to plan when the washing is going to be done, and that can be dovetailed with another call, those sorts of things. So I dovetail one of my week calls with my preparing my food calls, and you just have to plan it.
It can be tricky to get everything that you need done when the times you need support might change at short notice. However, with your own team, you can have more flexibility because you can negotiate directly with your PAs and they're not trying to balance the needs of other care users.
In the morning, my PAs will get me showered, get me dressed, all the usual like personal hygiene things, get me clothed, get me in my wheelchair. And then usually then, it's the working day. Like a lot of the times, it's needing somebody to kind of be around in case I need something. Usually like my family, someone of my family's around, or my partner's around with sort of little things of help that I need. And so yeah, I'd probably say the bulk of the help I need is sort of in the morning to get me going and ready, and then in the evening, sort of do the reversal, and then sort of intersperse bits of help needed through the day with sort of, I don't know, with food or toileting or whatever. And so yeah, it's the kind of help where like there's sort of patches of the day that are pretty intense, but then a lot of the day it's just needing someone to be around.
I've tried to work out my care plan as best round my day as I can, but sometimes, yeah, it can change and that's problematic.
The reality is, when you don't have 24/7 care, you are not wholly spontaneous. It is really not possible to be spontaneous, because even though I have funding for social hours, I have to negotiate those.
You can make it easier to negotiate the kinds of flexibility you need by thinking at the recruitment stage about who will find it easier to fit in with you.
I'm lucky enough that my carer lives really close to me. So if I, want to be alone or have like some private time, I can just say, you can go home, which I find really, I think it's really good actually, because like I think like with my girlfriend and stuff like that, I can have that independence away from my care at the same time.
My support needs, and they do change depending on like a bunch of factors. So for instance, my needs a few weeks ago when I was in the depth of a chest infection are very different. Well, not very different, are different to kind of what I need today, where, I feel in good health and feel pretty chipper about the world.
If you need 24-hour care, then you might think about having each member of your team stay with you for a number of days and nights at a time.
The average is sort of 1 to 2 weeks since 1 to 2 weeks off. And so, but there's been times longer, there's been times less. Like I do have an understanding around like they're very flexible, I'm pretty flexible. And there's been times if I've been traveling, I just needed them to do longer stints, or if I'm at home, then sometimes that the shifts have been shorter. So yeah, I've been really fortunate that I've had a team of people that have been flexible enough to kind of work around my life and be able to support me.
I think from an employer's perspective, having a living assistant gives you some more, I don't think stability is the right word, I guess if you imagined that you had a different person you had to work with every 24 hours, say, or every 12 hours, you had to constantly swap that person, even if that's somebody you work with frequently, that's a lot of disruption to your life. It's a lot of, that's having to hand over to a new person every however many hours. You've got to fit that into your schedule if you work or you have a social life or you like to go on holiday.
Different PAs will be looking for different kinds of flexibility.
Coming out at the end of university, and having done quite an intense course where I'd had to do a lot of hours, having a job where it was advertised that I could go and work for 5 to 7 days and then have sort of up to 2 weeks off sometimes at a time, and be able to have a bit of flexibility like that, and have and also the idea that when I was not at work,
by the nature of my needs as well mean that having somebody here for a week wouldn't work. So after about 72 hours, in the nicest way, the person that's here isn't any good for me, and I'm probably not any good for them because they're tired and need a break. And I'm probably starting to get frustrated that I can see that they're tired and there's things that I want to still do, or I've got another early start and I don't want to put that pressure on them. So then it doesn't work.
Even though it's called live-in care, none of your team should use your home as their permanent address. Don't let them stay with you when they're not there for paid work. Make sure to put their own home address for payroll, and do not allow them to change their address to yours for official documents such as driving license or bank statements. Live-in PAs still have their own life away from yours.
The longer chunk of time you're there, the longer the chunk of time you have off. And if you're someone that likes to do things with your time off, I always joke that I'm someone that I don't get bored. I never get bored. I always have too many things to do.
It's important to meet the requirements of minimum wage legislation, and that can seem complicated when someone's staying with you to provide your care as and when you need it.
One of the areas of law where things got very confused for a while, with lots of contradictory statements by different courts and tribunals, is about the different types of work and therefore working relationship that can exist in a personal assistance relationship, where you might require your employee to do different things, but you're not always sure if or when you're required them to do them. Now, in the context of supporting the home, PAs, what you need to think about is, do I really require someone to work for me 24 hours? What is the reality of the working relationship? Because that is what any court or tribunal would look at. And it's really clear from a case called Lloyd in the Supreme Court that what judges look at is, oh, come on, get real. What you need to do is to map out with clarity the definite yes elements of the role and the maybes. And if there is a chance that you might want somebody to do some work at a time when they're not supposed to be doing any work for you, you need to pay them minimum wage if they actually do the work. If you want them to sleep in because you might need to wake them to do some work, then you need to pay them the appropriate level, clear in advance, for the hours they actually work. And there's a slight grey area about whether you might be expecting them to not be properly asleep, dozing, one ear open kind of thing. But you must pay them at least minimum wage for the hours they actually work. And this is where 0-hour contract elements can be really useful. So saying, if I wake you, if somebody wakes you in the night, you will be paid the following rate for those minutes of work or hours of work.
Your PAs will have times when they need time off.
On both the legal and the practical financial planning side of things, one of the calculations you have to do is for life events on both sides of the employment relationship, but in particular for the fact that employees are entitled to 28 days, including bank holidays and public holidays, per year of leave, and then pro rata at least if they aren't full-time.
You can ask your PAs to work on bank holidays, but you must give them equivalent time off at another time.
So what I do try and do, though, is work with people on their availability. So I ask them to be able to do their contracted hours within a week, but I'm flexible to the point if they say to me, it's my grandson's birthday or my son's birthday, my husband's birthday, I'd prefer not to work those days. I don't make them necessarily take holiday. I just try and plan the shifts around that availability. I try and do things like, rather than have lots of shared weekends, where possible, I have people do one weekend in 4, so they still get 3 weekends off. When it comes to like Christmas and New Year's and what I'd call the significant public holidays, I write to them all individually, and I say, what do you want to work and not want to work?
I give them the flexibility to be able to choose to ask other people to cover their shifts or to volunteer to cover other people's shifts without having to come through me. Because for me, that's about treating them as grown-ups. You know, they're grown-ups. They know that job is important. They know that I can't cope without them. So they know that they will negotiate with their colleagues.
Providing that the carer that I've got is able, because again, if someone's new, they might not be ready to step up to whatever it is that I've got planned for that weekend. Or I might have specifically chosen somebody who's really good at something to work a weekend because I'm doing something that I need their skill set for.
I recently set up a WhatsApp group for my team so that actually if they can't cover, if they need someone to cover their shift, they can just ask the rest of them. And I can see what's going on, so I'm not going to be surprised by somebody turning up when I'm expecting somebody else, which I don't like, because that makes me feel like a parcel.
The formalities that you'll need when managing and structuring your team are a list of essential, specialist, and desirable tasks, a rota, a holiday request system. You need to think about safety critical tasks, tasks which can happen flexibly, and tasks which must be done at a certain time, the strengths and weaknesses of different members of your team, minimum wage, and communication between you and your team.